Today we have the honor of honoring Mike Zuranski as the Russell L. DeSouza Award winner for 2020. We've had to delay this presentation because of COVID, and we were trying to get it in person, but finally we just decided that it'd be great to hear from Mike, and we'll invite him out to Boulder at some point here to make sure he gets that full experience. But on behalf of the Unidata Users Committee, I am proud to present Mike Zuranski from the College of DuPage with the Russell L. DeSouza Award for your dedication, enthusiasm, and inspiration that truly reflect the goals and ideals of the Unidata program. You exemplify these ideals through your persistent efforts to engage Unidata's data production and user communities, and to improve data dissemination processes as an active beta tester of the local data manager software. And we especially commend your ongoing efforts to maintain and improve the College of DuPage NexLab site, which has become a reliable resource for thousands of daily users across Unidata's educational, commercial, and governmental community. And so congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much.
I believe your plaque has gone out in the mail. Oh, good, he does have it.
I got it, yeah. This came in about 2 days ago, so great timing, yeah.
Great, wonderful. And we'll go ahead and turn the floor over to Mohan for just a few brief moments to describe a little bit more about the award, and then we'll hand it over to you for your presentation. Mohan.
Thank you, Kevin, and congratulations, Mike. We are thrilled that you have been chosen to receive this award. Let me say a few words about this particular award for those who are new to the committee. This award honors individuals whose energy, expertise, and active service to the geosciences contribute in a way that's consistent with or furthers the Unidata program's mission. Honorees of this award personify the Unidata ideal of an inclusive community that promotes the sharing of data, software, and ideas through computing and networking technology. Since its inception in 1983, the Unidata program has benefited from the commitment of individuals who wish to serve in promoting the sharing of data, software, and ideas. This award is named after Russell L. DeSouza, whose involvement with and contributions to Unidata were exemplary, and whose many contributions to the ongoing enterprise of data sharing within the atmospheric science community, the Users Committee seeks to acknowledge and honor. And this particular award is very special to me because Russ DeSouza and I came on to the Unidata Users Committee as the founding members of the Users Committee in 1989, and we arrived at the Unidata Program Center the same day for one of the first meeting of the Users Committee. For those of you who don't know, in my previous life, I actually was a faculty member in atmospheric sciences. So I was on the other side of the Unidata program as a member of the community, benefiting from the data systems and software from Unidata. Russ DeSouza quickly demonstrated his hallmark concern for finding approaches and technologies that work for educating students. After a couple of years on the Users Committee, Russ joined the Unidata Policy Committee, which is now called the Strategic Advisory Committee, and he played a critical role in representing the interests of small colleges, because he came to us from Millersville University, which at that time was a small university and a department, not anymore, because the department has grown, by leaps and bounds as a result of the work that Russ DeSouza and Rich Clark and others have done. And one of his key things in representing the small colleges was to make sure that they had a view to the Unidata program the same way as large universities did. In particular, he actually committed resources at Millersville to and volunteered his students to maintain what we used to call an education floater, because we couldn't send the full satellite imagery for the entire US, but had to subset it over a particular region. And the region of interest was chosen by Russ DeSouza and his students every single day, and they will tell us where the center point should be, and the program would actually generate that image and distribute it through the Unidata Wisconsin satellite channel. Later on, the NexLab, first generation NexLab NIDS products were also provided in the same manner to universities that wanted to receive them. Unfortunately, DeSouza had to resign from the policy committee in the summer of 1995 to concentrate on his treatment for malignant melanoma. He retired officially from Millersville faculty on May 17, 1997, and died on June 6, 1997. The community lost a giant in Russ DeSouza as a result of this unfortunate disease. So in his honor, Unidata and the committees set up this particular award, and we are so pleased that you are the recipient of this award this year, Mike, because you personify the community contribution and sharing of data and tools. Without further ado, let me turn it back to Kevin.
Great, thanks, Mohan. And without further ado for me, we'll let Mike share his screen, and we look forward to seeing what you put together for us.
All right, give me just one moment. I should be sharing now. Do you guys see that?
Looks good.
Excellent. I wasn't entirely sure how a lot of this was going to come across the internet tubes. So, normally this is all done on a big projector screen. So I'm hoping some of the imagery comes across okay, but we'll worry about that later. Thank you, Kevin and Mohan, for your very kind words. And thank you, everyone, for having me here today. I am so honored to be the recipient of the DeSouza Award. I'm still kind of blown away. I think I'm still kind of processing this a little bit. So thank you so much for having me here and for presenting me with this incredible award. I wanted to talk about a few things here today. The advice I was given was to talk about how Unidata tools, services, the data itself, these kinds of things have impacted my career. And I definitely want to talk about that. And the only real way to do that story justice is talk a little bit about me, a subject I really don't like talking about, but that's okay. And to talk a little bit about the College of DuPage Meteorology program. My career has been exclusively at that one institution, so that'll be a little bit easy. And then I wanted to give you guys a kind of a behind the scenes look in our operation. I'll give you guys a sneak preview of a couple of things we're working on right now. And along the way, I'll talk about some stories that I have in working with Unidata over the years. And then we'll kind of bring it back in with the DeSouza Award, and I'd like to talk about what that means for me. But first, Victor got me into this habit of starting off anytime I do a talk or a presentation with a bit of a weather briefing. I'll make this quick, but we've had a bit of weather here across the country and especially in Chicago. So I want to talk just a little bit about that. As you can see, this was taken earlier this week downtown. And as you can see, the snow's clearly piling up in Chicago's streets and roadways. And as anyone from the city will tell you, parking enforcement takes that pretty seriously. Seriously, though, I took this picture outside of my place Tuesday morning. It was about 18 3/4 inches from that picture, just stabbing that around the neighborhood somewhere between 16 and 19. We've been getting snowfall after snowfall, anywhere from dustings to flurries to 3-4 inches at a time, 6-8 inches or more at a time. And it's been really cold here too, so it's just not really going anywhere. At the same time I was measuring this, O'Hare Airport measured 21 inches. I think they were down to 18 as of earlier today, but it's been snowing here more, so I think we've got another inch or two on the ground just today. And by the way, I do have a few more stats of weather here in Chicago, so if anyone has questions or is interested about that, let me know during the Q&A. And I wanted to kind of break out of that with talking about my background prior to coming to COD. I began working with computers and programming in my early teens. I think I got my first computer around 14. And right away started taking it apart, learning how it all worked. I started learning HTML in late 90s, around that time. And in high school, I took a couple of years of programming classes. So I was definitely interested in computers from that point on. I graduated high school in 2002. And by that point, I had a little bit of programming experience, a little bit of Linux experience, but not a ton. The bigger problem was I had no idea what I wanted to do after high school. And so I took a stab at taking a couple of college classes, but long story short, it just wasn't the right time for me yet. So instead of going to college after high school, I spent a lot of years working in retail, most notably at Starbucks. So I was a barista for many years. I was a shift supervisor for a while. And the cool one was I was also an equipment technician. So I was a guy driving from store to store, fixing all of the coffee and espresso machines that would break down. And that is where I really learned my love for problem solving. Discovered that troubleshooting was meditative for me, albeit with some colorful language at times, but it was where I really discovered just how much fun that is. And that sense of gratification you get at the end when you figure out what the problem is, implement your solution, and just watch it all smooth out again. That's the good stuff, right? So that's when I really discovered that. And I also discovered about that same time that retail wasn't right for me either. So I decided to go back to college, and I started taking classes at COD in 2008. I had to take a couple of years off pretty quick because of financial reasons, but I went back full-time for meteorology in 2010. And spoiler alert, I've been there ever since. The reason why I chose meteorology is a little, well, uneventful. A lot of people have stories of some event when they were growing up. Maybe it was a big winter storm, maybe it was a hurricane, maybe it was a tornado that happened nearby. For me, it's just I've always enjoyed the weather. It wasn't any singular event. It was just I liked watching thunderstorms. I would try my hand at forecasting. I'd be terrible at it because I had no idea what I was doing, but it was fun and I really enjoyed it. So I figured, you know, it'd be neat if I could get a career in that field, but even if I didn't, I would always appreciate the knowledge. So it'd just be nice to know more about it. That was really the reasoning I had in going back to school. Probably not the best reasoning to take out student loans and things like that, but it worked out, and that's why I'm here. I've also always enjoyed computing, like I told you earlier. I've been doing this for a while by the point I came to COD, but the interesting thing is it wasn't any part of consideration in why I chose meteorology. In fact, I had no idea how much computer science played a role in this field until I went to COD. So when my first day there, they basically sat me down in front of the website and started showing me all of these data visualizations and forecasting model graphics and all these other things. I was blown away by how massive of an intersection there is between meteorology and computer science. I was astounded. And all of a sudden, a lot of these hobbies that I've been taking on over the years and programming and such came flooding back. And it was really the data visualization aspect of this that hooked me. Funny story about this, I don't think Victor was 5 minutes in the door at COD when he began teaching here, when I was begging him to teach me GEMPAC. Because at that point, I saw what's capable, I saw what the data kind of looked like, but I really didn't have much familiarity with the software. But just kind of seeing what was possible out there really hooked me. And later on, the automation, just because I love automating things. So that's why I chose meteorology. So starting in 2011, I began working for the program as the student worker. I was a lab assistant, so I began contributing to the website around that time, began helping out with the program at large, keeping track of the, we have a computer lab for forecasting students, so I was helping to administer that. and just pitching in with other things like the storm chasing program and things like that. About a year later, I got my Associate's in Science degree from COD, and a year after that, I got a certificate in weather hazards and preparedness from the college. And that is the extent of my education. After I got that certificate, I still really didn't know what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed participating with the program and contributing to the website, but I didn't really know how I'd make a career out of that. At the same time, I was able to rule things out. I didn't really feel like I wanted to be a forecaster. I didn't really feel like I wanted to go to the National Weather Service or some of these other things. So I was ruling things out, but I still really didn't know what I wanted to do. So rather than just continue to spin my wheels in college and just go deeper into debt, I just took a break from it. And I just kind of hung around. So for the next 2 years, I was volunteering my time with the program. I was also an independent contractor there for a little while. And just a brief side note on that, to anyone who donated to the meteorology program at COD in those couple of years, I owe you a huge debt of gratitude, because that funding in part went to keep me there and to keep me relevant. I was able to continue to contribute to the program. And most importantly, it prevented me from going back to retail full time. I was also a certified weather observer at Midway Airport for about a year and a half too. So that was a great bit of experience to be on the data generation side of weather reports. So that was some very fun experience to have there as well. And around that time, we discovered that there was a possible avenue to get me hired into the college to do this sort of work full time. So in 2016, I was hired into this position, meteorology support analyst, and I've been there ever since. And just a brief description of what this entails for me. We have a handful of servers that we run our website from, so I'm the systems administrator for all of those. I do a lot of the data visualizations and other back-end processing for our website, and just a whole host of other things. So I wear a lot of different hats in this program. The one thing I don't do much of is front-end web development. We do have another person who does most of that. His name's Evan Anderson, and he is fantastic at what he does. And I'll talk more about that type of thing in a little bit. But I also wanted to talk about the program, the meteorology program at the College of DuPage. We're a community college, so all we can offer are undergraduate classes, but we have a focus on experiential learning. We get students involved with weather data, the tools, right away, their first semester there. In fact, this picture that you see is Paul Servatka teaching satellite interpretation to a forecasting class, which is a class that anybody can take. So we have a lot of cross-discipline students coming in, getting exposure to forecasting and what that process looks like. We also have a storm chasing program established in 1989. It's one of the first programs of its kind. I believe this was the first college storm chasing program where students could go storm chasing and get college credit for it. We are also storm ready since 2008, the first community college in the nation to be storm ready certified. And we are also a weather ready nation ambassador. Here are some of the faces that work for our program. Paul Servatka is the professor of meteorology. He's the one who started the program in, I believe it was 1988 or 89. And he's been here ever since. So truly the founder of the feast. Ron Stenz is our associate professor of meteorology. This is his third year with us, and we're very excited to have him. I wouldn't worry about that third guy on the top row. He's a nobody. But Evan is our web manager, and he's been with us for, I believe he's been a student since 2002. He's not a student since then, but he's been affiliated with the program for that long. So he does all of our front-end web development work. And he's actually only part-time, so we keep him incredibly busy. So if there's ever periods where you think like we're not really doing much, we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. It's just, he's a very, very busy guy, but he's also very talented, and we're very fortunate to have him with us. Dave Bukowski is listed here. He's also a IT employee with the college. He's in network services now. Prior to my role, he was our systems administrator, and he did a lot to just keep all of our services online. And so we're very grateful to have his support as well. And then there's a few other names in the bottom row you might recognize. There's Victor Gensini, who is, he was a faculty with us for about 5 years. In 2017, he went to teach at Northern Illinois University, but he still contributes to our program, primarily in a consulting role, but he's a very valuable resource, and we greatly appreciate all he does for us to this day. And then there's Gilbert Sebensti, who is also a DeSouza Award winner, won the DeSouza Award in 2010. He was at Northern Illinois for a good number of years, and he has been helping out our program for probably close to 20 years, 15 or 20 years at this point. He is a fantastic resource for all things Unidata, and certainly our go-to guy for any sort of questions relating to LDM and NOAA port. He knows all sorts of tricks there. So he continues to collaborate with us, and we're very fortunate to have him. And then another name you might recognize is Eric Nelson. He is a graduate from our program. I don't remember exactly when he graduated. That was before I started there, so he was a little bit before my time. But after he left COD, he eventually found his way to the NCAR facility in Boulder. So he is a name that some of you might recognize from there. And then there is our website, Weather.cod.edu. Online since 1995. We try to make this a one-stop shop for weather graphics and data. And we offer anything from satellite and radar imagery, analysis products, forecasting models, and text products that come from the National Weather Service, as well as other offices across the country and across the world. We've been online since the mid-90s, and we continue to make improvements. This is what it looked like in ages past. On the left is what it looked like when it first came online in the mid-90s, complete with guest book. And on the right is what it looked like in 2008. I like to think we've made some improvements since then. We weren't able to keep the guest book, so I apologize for that. But it is actually working. If you go to the Wayback Machine, you can see a lot of the comments people have written. And I believe one of the first comments was from Gilbert himself. So he was definitely around since at least 95 helping us out. Wanted to give you guys a few statistics about our website. On an average day, which is getting harder and harder to determine what an average day really is, we see about 5 to 10 million hits on our website, 20 to 40,000 unique visitors, and anywhere from 800 gig to a terabyte of data going out. And that's just on an average day. On a busy day, like during Hurricane Dorian, we had over 22 million hits, 75,000 unique visitors, and 3.25 terabytes of data going out that one day alone. That was our busiest day during 2019. And everyone came flocking to our site for some of this eye candy that you see in the bottom left. That is the day before it made landfall. And that's really when the busiest days for our website are. Not the day it makes landfall when it has the most impact. It's the day before when it's its most picturesque and everybody just comes flocking for that eye candy. I'm going to steal a joke from Paul because he presented some of these numbers at a board meeting about a year ago. And he made a comment that when he started at the program, his office had a 1200 baud modem. And he did the math and figured out that it would have taken over 20 years to transmit all of that data that we sent out in just one day. So just a brief thank you to the IT department at COD for supporting us all of these years. They have been incredibly supportive for our program and helping us meet our needs all these years and decades now. So we're very grateful for all that they do for us. Our busiest day last year was September 9th during Hurricane Pick One. As you can see, let me make sure that this is working here. As you can see, the tropical storm train is well underway. If I've got this right, this is Hurricane Paulette. The second one is, I believe, Renee, Tropical Storm Renee. I believe the storm that's over Africa in this frame is what will become Hurricane Teddy. And I think this top center storm is the remnants of Laura, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But that was our busiest day last year with 38 million hits, right around 115,000 visitors, and 3.25 terabytes of data going out. So we are keeping busy. Here's a brief list of some of the software that we use and some of the data feeds that we use. A lot of familiar names on this list. Obviously we use LDM. We still use GEMPAC, Mercatus. We use MetPy and Siphon in a few places. Grads, we still use WXP for a couple of things as well. And then on the data feed side, we get all of our model data from Nomads or FTP prod. We're using a series of LDM and ADDE feeds from Unidata and a few other various data services over the internet. PyIEM, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that's a repository from Daryl Hirschman, who is another DeSouza Award winner. 2016 is when he was presented with that award. And PyIEM is some of the work that he does at Iowa State, and he makes that available on GitHub. And I've been using that for the past year for mostly ingesting text products, and that's saved me a ton of headaches. So thank you, Daryl, for that repository. We have a bit of hardware behind the scenes too. Climate and Atlas are twins. They are two servers that do a lot of our data processing and data visualization. 72 threads and 192 gigs of memory. So they are our workhorses. The GOES server is something that was purchased using 2017 Unidata Equipment Grant Award, and we are eternally grateful for Unidata for awarding us that grant. It is where we do all of our satellite visualizations. I'll go into more detail about that in a moment, but that is truly a beast of a server, and we are very thankful that we have that. We also have 2 redundant virtual machines as our web servers. We have a NOAA port system with 2 redundant servers serving data through our program, and then a 3rd server off to the side for testing. That was mentioned just before the presentation, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later. And then we also have another virtual machine for IDD, where we're trying to centralize a lot of our LDM feeds. A little bit about our website. This is our satellite and radar page. I'm sure this is very familiar to most of you. We visualize all of our satellite imagery and all of our radar imagery with Mercatus X, and we are automating this with Python, wrapping it with the Mercatus Python wrapper that originally came from SSEC. It is responsible for about 75 to 90% of our site usage. We are able to offer all 16 ABI bands, 8 different RGB products, 42 data overlays, another 10 mapping overlays, and single site imagery for every US-based National Weather Service radar. And once again, this is all made possible because of the Unidata Equipment Award. A couple of things I want to talk about these on the satellite page. One trick that I use to present full resolution data over Canada is we leverage some Mercatus X commands and the Unidata ADDE server to do a remote cropping. We take a stripe of imagery over Canada, and that's what we get for full resolution outside of the CONUS domain. And then once we get that subset, we can then split that up into our individual sectors remotely. So this is allowing us to get that full resolution imagery. I really hope the quality of this image comes across. This is down here, the US border, and at the very top of the image is the northern border of the southern Canadian provinces. And this was just taken a few days ago, but I love imagery like this. This is a true color image, and with all of the snow, you can see the density of the forests, the lakes, the ice. It's just a fantastic product. So I'm really glad that we're able to offer full resolution data over Canada at minimal bandwidth, and that's really saving us for doing things like that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about GOES Restitch. It's a script that was written by Unidata. I believe this was primarily written by Ryan May, so I apologize if I'm not 100% correct on that. But this is a really cool script for a few reasons. The first is it's the data for GOES-R series of satellites comes in as NetCDF in a bunch of tiles that you have to kind of stitch together in order to get a complete data set. And that's a bandwidth saving measure for how they transmit the data. But that's a very important step. We have to stitch all of that data together to form a complete vision of that scan, and then we can start the processing. So this is something that I started using as soon as Unidata offered it, and I quickly realized that it was primarily designed to save the data. The next step for us, though, is to visualize it. Once I know a complete data set is in, we have to start running a few different processes. So I wanted to make some adjustments to this script to do just that. Once a complete data set is in, fire off another process and pass the name of the data set over to it so that it can start visualizing everything for us. And I decided to submit a pull request for those changes, and this is the first pull request I've ever done. And I'm pretty sure I screwed it up, but that's okay. And more than that, though, in trying to do that right, I wanted to, of course, do a good job in editing that script, and I wanted to match the style that Ryan had when he wrote it. And at the time, I was dangerous with Python, but I certainly wasn't that great with it. So this is, I was primarily a procedural programmer. I didn't really use much object-oriented stuff at the time. I hadn't seen anything in Python with async and await before. And this is the first time I had seen modules such as argparse, logging, and tempfile, which pretty much every script I make now uses argparse and logging, and I use tempfile everywhere I can because it's just a lifesaver. So this script really inspired me to up my Python game. It inspired me to go learn more about the language, more about the capabilities that it has, and I wanted to make a note of this because even though this is just a very simple script when it comes right down to it, sometimes it's the small things that make big differences. And I just wanted to let Unidata and Ryan and everyone else know that this really inspired me to continue on and to just keep doing better. So thank you for that. This is a screenshot of a 6-month-long email thread that I had with Tom Yaxis. When we were getting the GOES-R data before the satellite became operational, I worked extensively with Tom to bring these capabilities into the Makaitis X software, including the ABI imagery, the GLM point data that was coming from the satellite, and the level 2 derived data. So for quite a while, I worked with Tom to get that working, and it was a fun project. I was really excited to be sort of the guinea pig on all of that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that story, just because it was just a fun one. I was really glad that Unidata and Tom chose COD to try to facilitate a lot of this. So that was a really fun project. And then a little bit later, Dr. Eric Bruning, who is also a Unidata committee, users committee member, approached us at COD to see if we wanted to offer the gridded GLM, the value-added GLM data that he's been working on, to our website. And we were very excited to do that as well. We all kind of agreed that the best way to present a lot of this imagery is as an overlay on top of satellite imagery, so you could see all the same things kind of at the same time. So he quickly got to a point working with Tom Yaxis at Unidata to deliver that data over the LDM feeds. And then the three of us worked together to get this data visualized in Makaitis. So now it's part of our website. And this is flash extent density is the image that you see here. There's a couple of other variables as part of that same data set. Right now, this is the only one that we're visualizing for our satellite page. But there are a few others that I've got my eye on, so hopefully when I get a little bit more time, I'll be able to address some of those as well. Daryl is an awesome person for many reasons, but among them is this archive that he has over at Iowa State. He is able to archive the bulk of our satellite imagery. So immediately after we visualize it, we pipe it over LDM to Daryl, who archives it at his site. And we've been doing that since 2017. In fact, the satellite images that you saw earlier were from that archive. We have so many requests from users looking for archived satellite imagery. And just the way our website is designed, we don't have a lot of disk space, so we can only keep imagery for about 3 to 4 days. So this archive is just such a fantastic resource, especially since so many people come to our website looking for that satellite imagery. The very next natural question to ask is there an archive of this someplace? And we are so fortunate for Daryl to be able to support that archive. And the link to that archive is listed at the bottom there. And another archive I wanted to mention is a radar archive. They archive other products as well, but for us, they archive our radar mosaics. And they began archiving that in 2007. More recently, they switched to the larger image format that we have for our radar mosaics now. But this is an archive that's widely used by the community, and it never fails. We hear stories all the time of Paul or Ron going to a seminar or a conference or reading some paper, and they invariably see our satellite and radar imagery, and it's from this archive. And so we are so happy to be able to support the community by contributing to this archive. We're so, I mean, we're always tickled when we see that imagery in papers and things like that, but we're very happy to be providing that imagery, and we're very glad that it's being archived like that for so long. So, I mean, that's a fantastic resource as well. Enough with satellite and radar. Onto our forecasting models page, which, by the way, this image on the right is a snapshot of our brand new experimental forecasting models page. We just started coming online with that in the last few weeks, and it is a constant work in progress. Evan is pushing changes to that pretty much on a daily basis right now. So it's in a state of constant change, but we're hoping that in the next probably month or two, we will have that replacing our old forecasting models page. All of our forecasting model images, well, almost all of our forecasting model images are being visualized with grads, and they're being automated with Python and the Python or the Py3 grads wrapper for grads. When we started converting everything over to a new framework about 2 or 3 years ago, there were a few different Python wrappers for grads, and this was the only one that worked with Python 3 at the time, so that was a pretty easy decision to make. It is second place in terms of site usage at 10 to 20%, and that's just how busy satellite is for our page. Before GOES 16, I think it was closer to a 50-50 split. If anything, I think more people used models then. Now it's about 10 to 20% of our site usage. 10 different models, about 120 different products across those, and 20 or so sectors. And we visualize forecast sounding images with SharpEye, and we're still using WXP for the sounding text because it does a very clean ASCII text file for sounding data. And this image, the product that's being shown itself is one that we just started offering a few months ago. It's one of a series of anomaly products. This is 500 millibar height anomalies, and they're all based off of the 1981 to 2010 CFSR climate data set. So we've got a series of those anomaly products that are relatively new as well. And just a brief history of what some of our model images used to look like. Eric Nelson was the one who really started this whole thing when he was creating model images with WXP years and years ago. Somewhere around 2012, I believe, we went to Genpack, and we got Genpack allowed us to make much cleaner imagery and a few more advanced products. So I remember Victor was writing a script to calculate LCL heights, which then allowed us to calculate SIGTOR parameter and visualize that as a product. We weren't able to do that with WXP before. And then 2016 or 17, we transitioned everything over to grads, and we are able to make much cleaner images. Grads has its own scripting language, so we were able to get a little bit more clever because of that. And it just looks like a much cleaner graphic with grads than it did with Genpack and certainly with WXP. So this is just kind of a history of what some of our imagery used to look like. And I also take this as evidence that anything you put on the internet never really goes away. So Our analysis page is home to a lot of things like surface analyzed data, station plot graphics, upper air analysis. These are all being visualized with GEMPAC. We do have a couple of products that are still being visualized with Mercatus. I think Mercatus is still doing our cross sections. I'm looking to revamp a lot of these with MetPy in the next year or so. I'm admittedly a slow adopter of MetPy. Primarily when we've used it, it was for things like the counties feature in CartoPy, which thank you so much for including the counties layer in MetPy, because that is a lifesaver. But so yeah, sometime in the next year or so, we're probably going to start looking to replace some of these graphics with MetPy. And then we also have a section for text products on our website. The way it looks right now is still the last holdover from that mid-2000s period. This is something that is entirely written in Perl. Basically, the way it works is whenever a text product comes in over LDM, it gets converted into an HTML page through a series of Perl scripts. So everything on that text section is created dynamically, even the page itself. And overall, it's held up well over the years. There's a couple of issues. In the last few years, things have been slipping through the cracks a little bit more. In fact, I think I didn't notice this when I took the screenshot, but there's a bug on the screenshot already. There's a product for Central Colorado for AVG. I think that's supposed to say avalanche guidance. So every once in a while, we have some weird bugs like that. We have been very hard at work over the past year or so, revamping our text page. And so we have a new page coming soon. And I'm going to trademark that soon label. We're hoping to have this online later this year. And it's a completely rewritten page. The page itself is written in Python and Flask, as well as a host of other things. The visualization that you see here is being made with D3.js, and that's an interactive way to show how what alerts, what products are active for the various counties. And it's also a navigational element. So that's how you can kind of browse around between CWAs. And then you can just click on a product and it'll load right there in the right. And this is another place where I'm using PyIEM to do a lot of the data ingest and initial parsing. Another sample of that new text page is a watch, warning, and advisory interface. And this is something that is using the Weather.gov API to pull all of the active alerts for the country. And it's a quick visual indicator of what's active across the nation. Those counties that have the white highlighted borders are ones that have more than one alert active. So you can click on a county and this frame on the right is what you would see. A list of all of the products that are active for that county and the text of each. And so we're hoping to have this online in the next year or so as well. This is something that I've been working on last year. I was hoping to have this ready for last tropical season, but then, well, challenges were met. But this is a tropical storm interface. We're using the GIS data coming from NHC to visualize what the storm is doing and the history of the storm. So this is all done in the browser too. We do a little bit of visualization ahead of time for things like the wind speed probabilities and the historical wind field, but pretty much everything else is just JSON data going into the page being rendered on the client side. And you even have the ability to mouse over some of these dots and get more information. So this is the first dot on the advisory 28. So it's giving you the initial point observations and the forecast information for that point, and you can mouse over any of those. And the other feature that's on here is this little cone color selection feature on the bottom here. This is just something I was experimenting with, giving users control over styling their own page features. So by having this little color wheel, you can click on that and it'll pull up a color wheel and it'll allow you to change that cone of uncertainty to any color that you want. Basically started as a disagreement between me and Paul. He wanted white, I wanted blue. Okay, everybody can have it their own way now. So this works out. So we're hoping to have this online prior to this coming tropical storm season. Fingers crossed I can make that deadline. And then one other thing that's coming soon is a series of new graphics. These are visualizing products that are coming from other offices. So Top left is MRMS QPE. We have CPC outlooks. We'll have the full gamut of CPC outlooks. The top right is snow depth from the Office of Water Prediction. I am not a fan of how much color there is on that image right now, but that's a very neat product to have. The Palmer Drought Index is the one on the bottom right, showing the climate divisions and the Palmer Drought Index for each. And we've got other things coming online as well. So sea surface temperatures and anomalies, OLR means and anomalies, WPC forecasts and products, things like that. So we're very excited to have those coming online as part of our new text page. Two new tools that we actually have online right now, you can go to our page and see them, are two new situational awareness dashboards. This is a sample of our convective warnings dashboard. And the idea behind this is that you can have this displayed on a monitor off to the side. It will update every 2 minutes, and every time it does, it will populate these two tables with new alerts, new warnings that have come in. You can set up the page to automatically show the warning text on the right. So even if this is a little kiosk that you have behind a glass display case, it can just get set up and you can walk away from it and it'll just keep updating. And it breaks up some of the data from these warnings in a way that's a little bit easier to parse. And you can even filter and search through some of these. So you can say, only show me alerts for anything coming out of KLOT, for example. You can click on all of the text products that are associated with that particular alert. It's all based on the VTech headers, so we have something that we can track that product with. And then the other one that we have is for local storm reports. And it's the same type of concept. And you can filter by showing, only show the storm reports that came in for my county, my CWA, my state. Only show the reports for snow or flooding, whatever your concerns might be. So those are online our site right now. If you go to our text pages, there's a menu option for situational awareness. And those are pretty fun. We might tinker with those a little bit as we get into the convective season, but they've been working pretty well for a while. I do have a few other thoughts here about some of my experiences with Unidata. I was at the 2015 Triennial Users Workshop. The subject then was primarily in Python. And that was the only time I've been to Boulder, or the only time I've been to Unidata anyways. And I definitely plan on coming back. So hopefully sometime soon. As we mentioned earlier, we've been beta testing LDM versions here at COD recently. We have a server out with all of our other NOAA port equipment that's dedicated to testing. So there's nothing that it's supplying downstream. So we can restart this thing as often as we need. If a beta version has a bug, that's okay. And so we're very happy to be collaborating and contributing to Unidata to help improve the LDM. And Gilbert has been integral in that process as well. So a big thanks to Gilbert for helping out with that project. We also recently began contributing statistics regarding NOAA port to Unidata. As we get data coming over NOAA port, we often see a lot of these gap in product sequence messages. So Tom Yaxis gave us some code that parses those messages out of the LDM log file and calculates a few metrics based on that and sends that data back to Unidata. So that's something that we've been doing for a little while now. A series of other sites have been doing that as well. So we're able to help gauge the health of the NOAA port system at large. We're providing one baseline for what our NOAA port feed might look like. And it helps Unidata troubleshoot with other sites their NOAA port installation. I am gradually adopting MetPy. As I mentioned earlier, I've been kind of slow on this, but I'm really hoping this next year especially to start using MetPy more and more and more. I've been tinkering with more visualizations that MetPy does. We have a weather station on the roof of our building, and just a good example of a use of MetPy is it gives us temperature and relative humidity, but it doesn't give us dew point. And that's one variable that has maybe 6 or 7 different ways of calculating it. So while we could do that math ourselves, and that's what we're doing right now, I've been using MetPy to do some of those calculations. It makes things a little bit easier on my side. It standardizes the math because it's the same formula. If I'm using it here or there, or if somebody else is using it for the same thing, it standardizes that math, which is nice. So I've been using MetPy more and more here recently, and so far I'm a big fan. It's taken a while, but I'm using it quite a lot these days. And I also want to contribute more on GitHub. Going back to MetPy, I've got a couple of ideas for contributing to MetPy. So I definitely want to get a little bit better at submitting pull requests first, so I don't screw that up too bad again, but that's okay. And, you know, I can't make any promises here. There's a few T's I need to cross first, but I do want to offer some of our code online as well. We've gotten a few requests for that kind of thing over the years. And it's something that I do absolutely want to do. I just got to make sure that everything goes smoothly there. So that's one of my other goals for the next year or two, is to begin contributing more to various GitHub projects. And I wanted to kind of bring all of this back by talking about the reason I'm here today, the Russell DeSouza Award. I never had the pleasure of meeting Russ DeSouza myself. I believe I was in 6th grade when he left Millersville, so he was a little bit before my time. But in preparing for this and going through all of the previous presentations and videos, it's been really great watching and hearing all of those stories. And I really just wanted to say how much this award really means to me and how honored that I am to be here receiving it. It truly is incredible. And I wanted to highlight this one part of the award page on the Unidata DeSouza Award page. It's towards the bottom. It's kind of tucked into the how to make a nomination section. But the quote here is, "The award serves to honor those who often do not receive recognition of their substantive services to the community." And that is just so fantastic to hear. That really does resonate with me because, you know, normally I'm perfectly content living under my rock and working behind the scenes. I'm definitely behind the scenes guy. I duck into the corner every time a camera comes out. So it's always nice to be recognized, though. And it's just so fantastic that Unidata has this award that really tries to highlight people who otherwise might not be. So for this introvert here with a bit of a non-traditional background, this truly does mean so much to me. So thank you very much for that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight just a few other names. So I wanted to mention and give some thanks to some people who have helped get me to where I am today, whether they know it or not. So whether you helped teach me about meteorology or Gempack, Python, or Linux, maybe I worked with you on a project or two, maybe I've used some code or some service that you contribute to, or maybe it's just by providing the incredible support that Unidata provides every day. Thank you all so much, and thank you to Unidata for everything that you do. And with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Great, thank you, Mike. Wonderful talk, wonderful talk. And so we'll go ahead and open it up for questions for Mike. Anybody want to get us started?
Okay, everybody is being quiet, so I will jump in. You could have fooled us by saying that you are an introvert because your talk was phenomenal. I mean, it was such a nice talk, and we are so pleased to honor ourselves and you for your contributions to the community. And by the way, say hi to Paul, and he knows who I am. Our paths crossed in my life before my previous life. So we were office mates in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
My question to you is coming from being a person who actually worked on the very first weather website for the world, the so-called Weather Machine, which was a Gopher site at University of Illinois. And then we had the first website. We called it the Weather Machine. This is back in 1993-94 when Mosaic was launched. And the first thing out of my department head's mouth was, "Why are you doing this?" So I never forgot that. And I'm going to ask you, does this come up in your department as to why College of DuPage is delivering this unbelievable service to the world? Because we couldn't live without the College of DuPage website.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. Speech and presentation has been something I've been trying to focus on over the years. I used to be very, very shaky whenever I'd give a presentation, especially if I was ever holding papers up as I was talking. That was just bad. So practice makes perfect. I'm certainly not perfect yet, but I'm getting better. And I will absolutely pass along your greetings to Paul too. Absolutely. Yeah, that is a topic that comes up at COD. I think that's a topic that comes up kind of everywhere. A great example of why this website is so important is when we were a few years ago trying to hire faculty to replace Victor after he left. I don't remember exactly how many applicants we had. It was on the order of dozens. And only one of them came from the state of Illinois. I believe everybody else was out of state. The one person who applied from Illinois was an adjunct faculty with us already, so that's how he knew about the program. But everybody else knew about our program because of our website. So that's really a testament to just how widespread these services are really kind of felt throughout the community. We are absolutely very cognizant of that, and it's a big reason why we try to offer so much, is because sometimes it's really difficult to find a data set or an image or a product that you're looking for. So we're trying to be a one-stop shop for a lot of these. Every once in a while, we do other services for the college as well. So for example, We Are Storm Ready. That was a service that we helped design. So whenever a tornado warning is issued, for example, a series of things happen so that the college is automatically alerted. And we provide forecasting services for maintenance and facilities, so they know when they need to go salt or clear roads, things like that. We've been pretty easy on them this season because everybody's working from home, but we try to offer services throughout the college as much as we can, and then, of course, throughout our local community as well as the broader meteorological community.
Thank you.
I want to say something. So when I first started teaching satellite meteorology, I wasn't sure, what to show for real time, especially as we started migrating toward GO 16. So every day, what I would show my students was COD. And like the fact that I could do the different sectors and that you had RGBs, I was just like, look at all these cool things. And until I could figure out how to plot that myself in Python, that was my bread and butter. And so when you were giving your talk and you mentioned that archive at Iowa State is saving those images, you have no idea how much work you've saved me, because my students have to do case studies throughout the semester and I was going to generate all the archive imagery for them. Oh, wow. But you have the RGBs already there. You've got CONUS, you've got Meso. So I was a little distracted during part of your talk because I'm just like typing all these notes furiously to make sure I've got these bookmarked. So like, thank you. That was like, I really, really enjoyed your talk and seeing your path through meteorology. And there was a lot I identified with there, especially with, slowly adapting to certain aspects of Python, but also my students and I are going to benefit so much knowing that this archive is out there, because the other one I'd been using was the UCAR one, and they don't have all the products. I want my students to use multiple bands. I want them to use the RGBs, and you have them. And honestly, out of all the sites I've visited that do pre-made RGBs, CODs are the best looking.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. Thank you for that. And just to highlight again, that's Daryl's archive out at Iowa State, and we are so grateful that he's willing to do that. I don't want to do the math on how much disk space we're taking up with this. It's got to be and I think he's offsetting some of this to Google Drive now. So like you'll go there and it'll be his landing page, and oh yeah, for this data set, go over here next. But it's most things. It's not everything. I don't think he's archiving the local sectors because it's just too much. But all of the products are there for the sectors that we do archive. So yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to make good use of that. I don't know if you had a chance to go out there yet, but there's no real front end to that archive right now. So you'll have to kind of browse through the directory structure, but the data's there. So yeah, I'm glad you're able to you and your students are able to make good use of that.
Yeah, I'm mentally designing a Python script to parse out what I need for them, so that all they have to do is give me a range of dates, and I'm like, here you go, as opposed to having to run the Python on my end.
The one thing I will warn you about is if the imagery is on his archive itself, it's the individual images. So you can get just the image you want. If it's not on his archive, if it's out at Google Drive, then it's a zip file for the day. And I forget exactly how that's broken up. It's not, I don't think it's just everything. I think it's a zip file per sector per day. Excuse me. So you do have to get like when I was getting the imagery for the presentation earlier, I used, okay, well, here's the CONUS imagery because that's still there on a per image basis. That's the one I want. Okay, great. And then I'd go over to the other archive and get the whole daily set because that's like a gigabyte or more. So I want to make sure I get that right and not have to, waste all sorts of time and bandwidth.
Mike, I don't have a question, but I just want to say how proud I am of you. It feels like yesterday you straggled into my probably global and climate change course or something like that. And we sat down to discuss GEMPAC and conversion to the website and everything from that day to probably your first date with X-ray in Python, and then of course the conversion to grads. But I'm so proud of you how far you've come at COD and continuing to serve the community at large, and now your involvement with Unidata. So just wanted to say I'm proud of you and congratulations on the DeSouza Award. You're very well deserving.
Thank you so much. That really does mean a tremendous amount to me. And thank you again for everything that you've done to help me get to this point over the years.
Any other questions or thoughts for Mike? I can't believe with all those hits during those peak days that your systems don't just die and crumble. That was, I mean, even seeing the beefiness that you have, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of traffic.
It did crash us once. So another story of GOES 16, when we first started visualizing that image, it was being made with Python. And this was before the Unidata grant server. And it was, I want to say, within a week or two of the new satellite page getting online, that I'm going to make this up and say it was Hurricane Harvey. I don't remember exactly which storm it was, but within like a week or two, that storm hit and our website had been online just enough to get that excitement going. And that definitely crashed our server that night because we hadn't had a chance yet to go through and really optimize all of the imagery, the cache settings, these kinds of things. So it was just incredibly burdensome. And it did bring our site down. And we were basically borrowing memory from other servers just to get it back online for the rest of the night. Anybody from COD's IT department that might be watching, no, we didn't take down Blackboard just to keep the satellite imagery up. These were all offline servers already. But yeah, that's a thing that we did, yeah.
It would have totally been worth taking Blackboard offline for any meteorology purpose. Anyway, Victor, did you have another comment?
Oh, I just thought I was thinking about your numbers. If you could get every, on just one active day, get every user unique IP address, right, to donate $1, you could have the European ensemble in the models page. I was shocked to see how many unique user hits that you get on an active day. But yeah, kudos to you and everything that you guys continue to do over there.
Yeah, I just shared these numbers again, just in case anybody wanted to have any more discussion about these. But yeah, it's certainly trending up too, year after year, as we continue to add more to our site, as it continues to get more popular. These numbers just keep going up. So it's generating a bit of smoke, but so far there's no fire. Yeah.
Great. Any other comments or thoughts?
Just another story maybe to offer from just how much this website is appreciated. I was working with the Weather Service on the AWIPS implementation of the GLM imagery. And as part of that conversation, standing there in front of an AWIPS display, the Weather Service management guy I'm talking to is like, you know, if this could get on COD, that would be really helpful too, because the forecasters a lot of times just kind of prefer to pull up that web page. So, you know, there's usage at so many levels, and you know, it's certainly the first place I send anyone when I think about where to get weather imagery, and certainly your traffic, you know, gives an indication that I'm not alone in doing so. So, thanks for all your help too, and you know, getting those products out to the community. And I echo everyone else. You're certainly so deserving, and such a pleasure to work with in making that all happen. So, really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you, Eric. And it's been great working with you too. I'm very grateful that you picked us. I'm assuming first, but if not, that's all right. I'm so grateful that you decided to work with us to get that imagery on our website. I love that product. I use it all the time. And I mean, like I said, I'm hoping that in the next year or two, maybe we can offer some of those other variables as well, like total optical energy, minimum flash area. I believe those are the other two that I've got my eye on I'd like to offer. So thank you for providing that data to us.
Certainly. I wish I could find so many more people like yourself that could think technically and actually like reel off those product names from memory. Many people who should be able to still can't. So
I didn't rehearse this speech at all. No.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. We here at Valpo are definitely true believers in the COD sites. You know, I'm a longtime data visualization person from back in my Oklahoma days, and I have no desire to redo that because there's such a great wealth of information, especially at your site. And that our students, every weather discussion, if COD isn't included, it would be an unusual day, at least in some respects. So,
yeah. Thank you, and thanks, Jeff. I just saw your comments as well.
All right. Well, I think that concludes our work for today. And,
keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you one last time.
Yep.